Yo, what is up guys? It is Bumfris, back with another episode of Entitled Parents. Today's episode is gonna be a banger and I know you're gonna love this one. I'm finally back after a good break, I'm feeling refreshed and ready to go again. So if we can hit 3,000 likes on this video, not only will we have a video tomorrow, but it'll be 20 minutes long. So once you've liked the video, sit back, relax and get annoyed at some entitled parents. So this is a story about my sister-in-law's mother that happened just over a year ago. My sister-in-law brought this up during a family Zoom call, to which one of my nieces immediately asked for me to write it up here. It's taken a few days since the call to get it all typed out. I've ended up with a monster wall of text, but I've tried to cut a lot of it out too. The cast for this one will be myself, Alice, who is my sister-in-law, Helen, who is Alice's mother or our entitled mum, Ron, who is Alice's husband and my brother, and Fred and George, who are two of my older brothers. To set the scene, the wedding was set to happen on a farm run by my Aunt Rose. The farm is set up to be photo ready for weddings and events that people wish to have there. It comes with a hefty price tag for a rental, and for her gift to Ron and Alice, Aunt Rose donated the venue and the on-site lodge for all of the guests. Her children donated their time to clean and set the venue up, and her husband donated his cooking ability. Other family members provided the ingredients, and there wasn't a whole lot for the bride and groom to actually pay for. The wedding dress was made by Alice, her sisters, and two of our cousins. The most expensive thing that the pair purchased were the rings. Most people would be happy to spend so little for a wedding, but the mother of the bride was a problem from day one. She had to have her say in everything. It was just that no one listened. It wasn't her day, it was Alice's day. She got progressively more angry as the family went with Alice's choices and not her ideas. Alice got to design everything, including the wedding cake. Due to her own allergies, she didn't want coconut on the cake. Pretty straightforward request, right? She had plans for a beautiful naked cake decorated with berries and a very nature-based look. The family adored Alice, but it was very clear that without needing to say anything, we all turned out Helen and her terrible demands. Alice had ordered sunflowers and an array of orange and yellow roses and other flowers. They arrived before the rehearsal dinner and we put it in the walk-in fridge to keep them looking good for the following day. Helen got very emotional when she saw the flowers that night. Fred said he had a bad feeling in his gut at the same time that Helen went off just before the rehearsal had started. He didn't get to stop her or catch her, but she'd gone into the kitchen and snapped the heads off of the sunflowers. Helen didn't want sunflowers in her daughter's wedding photos. To not stress out the bride or groom, Fred put a text out to the family that had supplied the flowers. He explained that he'd left the rehearsal about 6 minutes after Helen had and found the flowers had been beheaded. The family member agreed to replace all of them and come over extra early before the wedding with the needed flowers. She also requested that he save the sunflower heads and that they could do something with the beheaded ones on the dining table for the reception. Crisis 1 averted. However, while Fred was dealing with the sunflowers, I was dealing with another crisis altogether. Helen was standing off to the side of the event after finishing the meal, and she was on the phone, and like my brother, I found a feeling of wrongness in my gut, so I wanted to listen in. She was talking to her husband, Alice's stepfather, on the phone. She was saying what a great surprise this would be for Alice and how excited Alice would be to see her stepfather. I stepped into Helen's space and told her point blank that if that man showed up, he would be leaving with more holes than God intended. Helen scoffed at the threat until she saw the look in my eyes. She told her husband that she would call him back before hanging up. She told me that she could invite her husband. After all, it was thanks to him that Alice even met her future husband. She would be so thrilled to have him walk her down the aisle instead of Alice's own father. It was only right after all. Who wouldn't want someone who treated them so badly that they ran away and got rescued by a stranger at their wedding? I looked over my shoulder and made eye contact with George. He sensed the brewing trouble and responded in the only way that George ever responds with. He brought her a fruity sweet drink and asked if there was a problem. She drank down the drink as she told him of her woes and how I was so cruel to her. He patted her arm and took her off to the side, where he proceeded to keep her glass very full. I went and warned my uncle to shut the gate prior to the wedding, and when he found out what was going on, he insisted that he would keep one of his sons by the front gate just in case. The party was winding down as the bride and groom separated for the evening. George kept filling up the woman's glass, talking to her as if he was the most sympathetic person to her woes. The drunker Helen got, the more she spilled. She admitted about the sunflowers because they were such an ugly flower and her daughter didn't know better. However, around drink 4, she admitted that she'd fixed the stupid cake that she'd seen in the fridge. George acted like he hated the cake as well to get out what he could from her, as he found out this woman had wanted coconut cake, the thing that her daughter was allergic to. badly allergic to. Turns out, she had bought a few tubs of coconut frosting from the store and spread it all over the base cake layer. It was around 3 AM when this revelation came out. George kept piling her with drinks as he led her towards the room that she was staying in. He told the family via text to check the cake out immediately. Once he got her into bed with the plan to just let her sleep through the morning wedding, she blabbed about how bad the food all looked and how she made it all better. Then she passed out without further explanation. All of the food was being inspected by the family as Aunt Rose, her husband and kids set to work with the siblings to fix everything. The cake needed to be remade as the poorly spreaded coconut frosting had completely ruined the cake. Family members were woken up while the bride, groom and wedding party were left alone to sleep. George said he would keep an eye on Helen and fix things with her husband. He was going to send the men somewhere completely different from the wedding venue. The family came together with 12 cars leaving the ranch to go home for various replacements. There was a berry hunt at 4 in the morning, new fish, new bread being made, a new order of steaks being tenderized and marinated, along with a dozen other things. One of my cousins was digging up new sweet potatoes while his wife and son gathered fresh eggs. Cars came and went all night. I told Alice her mother was sleeping off a hangover while she was getting dressed for the day, and she accepted it rather quickly. After all, she'd been told by some of her family that she had to invite her, not that she wanted to. As she tugged her stockings up, she told me that she couldn't believe that her wedding was here. She was getting to marry her Prince Charming in Ron, and she was trying not to cry before getting her makeup done. Helen misses the wedding despite her sister and her other daughter trying to wake her up for it. I'm glad to say that Alice was in the dark about what happened on her wedding day until she came back from her honeymoon. And guess who told her what Helen had done? Why? It was Helen herself. Helen screamed at her daughter the first day they returned from the honeymoon and told her how disappointed she was with the wedding that she slept through. She wanted Alice to dress in her wedding dress and take photos with her mother and her stepfather. Ron put a stop to that real fast. No way was her stepfather ever coming near her again. Helen was blocked, and Alice tried to figure out what had happened at the event in those wee morning hours. We told her, with everyone coming forward with what they'd done, while the couple slept and rested for their wedding day. Alice thanked us all, and Ron told everyone at the next family get-together that she couldn't understand how we'd all been so calm about it. Aunt Rose told her that in a crisis, you can't lose focus. Make a plan, follow through, and things will work out alright. Alice took that advice to heart. She's a wedding planner now, and she is a stonewall for brides against their mothers or any influence beside the husband. It is their day, and that's it. Everyone else can shut up and listen to the bride and groom. Reading through this story made my stress levels rise more than they should have. The amount of rubbish that this entitled mum put her own daughter through is absolutely astounding. I've read some pretty crappy stories when it comes to weddings and mothers and other people trying to sabotage them, but this one is probably the worst. If I was Alice, I'd be cutting my entitled mum out of my life for good, and I would make sure that she never sees me again. If she wants to try and hijack her own daughter's wedding day, well, as far as I'm concerned, she doesn't deserve to have anything to do with her. On the bright side at least, it sounds like Alice has some really great family members outside of her mum, and more than anything, I'm just glad that things worked out well in the end. This happened back in 2006, so some of the details are a little fuzzy, and I'm dyslexic, so I apologise if there are any spelling errors. For some background, my aunt tends to go through cars like you wouldn't believe, and at this point had just ruined her 30th car. Yes, that's 30. My grandmother, being her mother, had offered to give her my late grandfather's car since my grandmother no longer needed 2 cars. But that wasn't good enough for my aunt. She had her eye on an overpriced 7-year-old red SUV with a ridiculous amount of miles, and because of her financial situation, she needed someone to co-sign to get a loan for the car. My grandmother, who had lost her husband not even 2 years prior, had no interest in signing for a new car that would probably die before it was paid off. So, at Sunday dinner one week, my aunt asked my father, being her younger brother, if he would co-sign for her car loan. My father basically told her, "No way in heck. If I co-sign for a car for anyone, it would be for my 16-year-old daughter, not you." And then he told her to take Dad's old car. This triggered a major fight between my father and his sister, which ended in my aunt screaming, "If you won't co-sign for my car loan, I'll call Child Protective Services because your daughter is sleeping on a mattress on the floor." Now, my bed frame had broken not even a week before, so I was sleeping on a box spring and mattress on the floor until we could get me a new bed frame. This is important. None of us thought anything about this threat since my aunt had a habit of making empty threats when she didn't get her way, at least until a few days later. So a few days later, I got a call down to the guidance office in the middle of a chemistry test for an urgent matter. When I got to the office, I was led into a small room with a school social worker and another woman. The other woman then asked me, "Hello, I have a few questions about your living arrangements." She asked me questions like, what's your home life like? How do your parents treat you? Are you happy at home? Do you have your own room? Etc. It wasn't until she asked, how do you sleep at night? Did I start to mentally piece things together. And I asked her, what is this about? The woman hesitated, but eventually told me, we received an anonymous tip that your father is forcing you to sleep on the floor. We want to know what that's about. And that is when everything clicked. And I was livid. So I told the woman, I'm not being forced to sleep on the floor. My bed frame broke about a week ago, so I'm currently sleeping on a box spring and mattress until my new bed gets delivered. I'll bet you any amount of money that my aunt was the person who made that anonymous tip because my father refused to co-sign for her to get a new car. The woman from CPS looked stunned and turned towards the school social worker and asked if they had a way of reaching my father to confirm things. Since the number they had was outdated, I took my dinky little Nokia prepaid cell phone out of my bag and gave them my father's work cell phone number. Unfortunately, I have no idea what was said during that conversation since I was sent out of the room during the call, but it's safe to assume that my father confirmed what I had said. Once they got off the phone with my father, the woman came out and the woman from CPS apologized to me and I told her that I understand and she was just doing her job and went back to class. My aunt admitted to making the call to CPS and my grandmother was furious. She made sure that my aunt didn't end up getting that red SUV she wanted and she was forced to take my late grandfather's 1998 Chevy Cavalier. Unfortunately, my aunt didn't get any legal trouble for the false CPS report due to it being an anonymous tip, but my father gave her a harsh warning about what would happen to her if she pulled another stunt like that again. My aunt is still super entitled and has sadly only gotten worse. I swear the theme of today's episode is people screwing over their own family members for some of the pettiest reasons I have ever heard. I'm sorry, but if you've been through 30 cars in your lifetime, regardless of how long that might be, there is absolutely no way that you would ever get me to co-sign on another car ever again. To be fair, the aunt doesn't sound like a fantastic person anyway, so more than anything, I'm disappointed that she still ended up with a free car when that car could have gone towards the 16-year-old OP. Okay, buckle up, cause this is a doozy. I work for a pet/house sitting company and had a new client on my schedule for 3 visits a day for 2 weeks to take care of a dog. When I go into the house, I go in and I see a kid. I thought they must have been running late leaving and didn't let us know. So I said hi to the kid and said it's okay, don't be scared, then called out for the parents. The kid says they're gone. And I ask, what do you mean? The kid said I needed to hurry up and make her breakfast and take her to school. I asked again, what do you mean? Where are your parents? She said they're gone on their trip and again told me to hurry up because she's hungry. I asked her how old she is and she said 7. I asked if they'd left her here alone and she said yeah. Her mum told her that we'd be by in the morning to make her breakfast and take her to school. In the afternoon to pick her up from school and make her a snack, and at night again to make her supper. I asked her where Macy the dog was, which turned out to be a made-up name. She said they don't have a dog. I said when the owner came for the client meeting and to get the house keys, she met a dog. And the kid said that her mum borrowed the neighbour's dog. OMG. I called the company owner and told her what was going on, and of course, she was flabbergasted and came over immediately. She tried to get a hold of these kids' parents, but they weren't answering their phone, so she called CPS and explained everything when they got there. CPS took the kid, the parents' info, and left. The next day, the kid's mum called the owner and left a rambling message screaming about how could we turn her kid into CPS and how we broke the contract so they were going to sue her for that and also the cost of their ruined vacation. The owner called them back and told them that our agreement was to take care of a dog, not a kid, and that was illegal anyway. And also, borrowing a dog for her to meet for the client meeting was a deliberate misrepresentation, so good luck with a lawsuit. She hasn't heard from them since. I guess our pet sitting service was cheaper than hiring someone to watch the child properly. We still can't understand how this woman thought this would actually work. Sometimes you have to wonder what goes through these entitled parents' heads, like, What OP said just rings so true. I don't know how they possibly thought they could get away with something like this. Like, did they just think that the dog sitting service would rock up to the house and think, this is a completely normal situation, I'll just look after this kid despite the fact that I'm getting paid to look after a dog 3 times a day? Honestly, if nothing else, this mother probably should have CPS step in and take a little bit more action. Alright everyone, that is that for today's episode of Entitled Parents. I just want to start off by saying thank you so much for watching and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy the video, don't forget to smash that like button down below. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe as well, and I'll try and respond to as many comments as I possibly can. Thank you so much to everyone for sticking around. I've been super busy lately and I just really needed the break. I'm feeling pretty refreshed and ready to go again. For everyone that's asking where I've been, I am okay, it's just work's been pretty overwhelming and I've needed that break. I mean it when I say I appreciate and love each and every single one of you, and I cannot thank all of you enough for caring enough just to ask how I am. It means so much to me. If there's anything I can do to give a little bit back to you guys, please let me know in the comments below and I'll do my best. But I am going to wrap things up there for today's episode of Entitled Parents. I just want to say again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you're all having a fantastic day and hopefully I'll see you guys tomorrow for another episode of Entitled Parents. Bye.